That, I think, should lead us to have great suspicion for the true intentions of the United States.
Carney's new election narrative has arrived. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, we've got more fallout here coming from Maduro being captured by America, Donald Trump shipping him up to New York to be tried in a court of law. And with that, we've got more leftist meltdown. The CBC going in overdrive here, trying to drum up this new fear of scary Donald Trump. And this is turning out to be quite the polarizing event. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we got new pictures of Maduro, and this is how Trump's going to roll this. They're going to put out these pictures here to embarrass, to humiliate the guy, and to let the world know that this is how Trump is going to handle narco terror lords, a guy who's enslaved his own people, a guy who 2 years ago lost the election and refused to step down. The reason he was able to stay in power is because he has the military on his side. The military in Venezuela is highly corrupt, and he has control over them. This is a major problem going forward because Trump has to deal with that somehow. We've also got a video of him being walked out of the plane. So I think what they're doing here is they flew him over to wherever, the closest point they could to put him on a boat, and they're sending him up to New York on a boat. They could put him on a plane. They're choosing to stick him on a boat. And with all of that said, look who decided to join the party here. It's Mark Carney finally releasing his message here. So he's in a tough position because he can't make a statement either way without losing supporters. So what did he have to say? Listen to this convoluted mess. One of the first actions taken by Canada's new government in March 2025 was to impose additional sanctions on Nicolas Maduro's brutally oppressive and criminal regime, unequivocally condemning his grave breaches of international peace and security, gross and systemic human rights violation and corruption. So he's acknowledging Maduro is bad. What do you think? Is he going to thank Trump? Canada has not recognized the illegitimate regime of Maduro since it stole the 2018 election. The Canadian government therefore welcomes the opportunity for freedom, democracy, peace, and prosperity for the Venezuelan people. Quickly jumping out down memory lane, we got the 2024 Venezuelan presidential election. These were the results here. You can see Gonzalez won with 68.7% of the vote versus 30% for Maduro, but he refused to step down, use the military, stayed in power. The Canadian government therefore welcomes the opportunity for freedom, democracy, peace, and prosperity for the Venezuelan people. This is all just very generic. Canada has long supported a peaceful, negotiated, and Venezuelan-led transition process that respects the democratic will of Venezuelan people in keeping with our long-standing commitment to upholding the rule of law, sovereignty, and human rights. Canada calls on all parties to respect international law. International law isn't a thing. There isn't a world government, so that isn't a thing. What they're talking about is the UN, all these eco-bureaucrats that try to make up laws and force them on countries, often on countries that have a lot of power they can't control. So essentially, Carney's taken a little bit of a jab here at Trump, but he doesn't want to say it outright because he's too much of a coward. We stand by the Venezuelan people's sovereign right to decide and build their own future in a peaceful and democratic society. Canada attaches great importance to resolution of crisis through multilateral engagement and in close contact with international partners about ongoing developments. We are first and foremost ready to assist Canadians through our consular officials and our embassy in Bogota, Colombia, and will continue to support Venezuelan refugees. This is an incredibly weak response by Mark Carney. He wanted to try to stay right in the middle and not commit either direction. He knows all the insane leftists who think Maduro had the right to just sit in his palace and completely destroy the lives of the people of Venezuela. He knows he's seen the left who keep bringing up this international law thing as if Maduro gets to be protected by international law while he's breaking the law in his own country. This guy illegally staying in power, and yet leftists think this is a bad thing, that they're getting rid of this narco trafficker terror lord out of Venezuela. We have a lot of replies from creators, and they're just all nailing it. Mario with, "You're in a pickle and you know it. Most of your base knows that Maduro was a narco dictator, a thug, and likewise, most of your base suffers from TDS. Hence why you couldn't muster a simple congratulations for a flawless operation and freeing the tens of millions from a dictatorship rule. Your biggest concern is how this is going to affect the USMCA, given Trump just announced he'll be pumping oil from Venezuela. I mean, that's what it comes down to here." And he goes on to mention here, he took too long to get a deal. Carney's just an absolute loser. He's working for himself. He doesn't care about Canada. We've got Wyatt Claypool. Pathetic statement, no moral clarity, hedging like a gardener because, half your base wants you to condemn Trump and the other half is rational and knows Maduro was a thug who got what was coming to him. Exactly. It's really quite shocking that leftists think it's bad that this guy has been pulled out of the office that he doesn't belong in, that he didn't win. And the fact that all these leftists are going after Pierre Poilievre when it's Mark Carney who can make the decisions right now to approve a refinery, approve a pipeline to the east, approve a pipeline to Prince Rupert, to twin the Trans Mountain pipeline. It should all be going right now. And making a deal for Keystone XL. Sounds like you did nothing but virtue signal as usual. And now you're embarrassed because someone actually had the balls to do something. Carney's a weak man. He's only in it for himself. And we've got table salt. Grok how not to piss off Trump, but also look weak and also subtly protest regime change, but not make it obvious. That sums up exactly Carney's reply here. In other news, what do we got? Media running. Poilievre lights emergency flares to beg Trump to invade Canada. Oh boy. We do have Pierre Poilievre with another response here. Every day it becomes more and more clear that Mark Carney's testifying against the Northern Gateway pipeline and the Liberal government's cancellation of it was a generational blunder for Canada's economic independence. Now we are in a weakened and dependent position. No matter what they promise now, Liberals will never make it happen. So Poilievre doubling down on this, nailing him on this pipeline that never got built. Mark Carney in full favor of blocking this. Here we've got another video of them parading Maduro around. Brian Lilly saying that they are documenting this and releasing it in a way that is not about humiliation. It's warning to other leaders. Kim Jong-un better go on vacation. And that's true. It is a warning to other leaders, but it's not a warning to all leaders. Obviously, any other narco terror lords might want to watch their back, but it also has to have something in it for America. And that's where the oil comes in. It's a perfect storm. So it's not like Trump is going to roll into Canada, roll into Greenland and just completely annex it, use the Apache helicopters and send missiles into the local police station and raid the place and take it over. That's what we're getting from the media, though. This kind of fear-mongering, trying to set it up for Mark Carney for his next election run. This scary and dangerous Donald Trump is going to take over our country, but don't worry, we've got Mr. Banker to fight back against Donald Trump. And here we have Exhibit A on CBC. What's next for Venezuela and its hard-hit oil sector after the Maduro capture?
Roxana, just before speaking to you, we were with our colleague Gloria in Montreal, and she was speaking to Venezuelan nationals living in Canada who are celebrating what has taken place, the ousting of Nicolas Maduro, which seems so at odds with so much of the international analysis that we're getting that this may have been an illegal act carried out by the U.S. president. Talk to me about how you're interpreting what is taking place in Venezuela.
You notice that? That's where they're going with this. There seems to be people celebrating, but why would they do that? Trump broke the law. This was an illegal act to get rid of this awful terror lord that was enslaving his own people. You know, the people of Venezuela over a single year, on average, they all lost 20 pounds. That's how bad the food insecurity is there. Now, this is going back a couple of years, but during Maduro's reign. And just so we're clear, this is what Venezuela looks like right now. So I don't know if this is copyright music, even though they're singing it, but I mean, everyone's singing and dancing. They're happy. This is a celebration. It is not like, oh, that evil Trump came in here and took away our awful dictator. We don't like Trump. Is there anyone here who's mad at Trump? I doubt it. I've not seen one Venezuelan mad at Trump for arresting Maduro. Not one. But that's not the narrative they're painting here on CBC.
You know, on the one hand, of course, Venezuelans that have seen their country deteriorate over 2 decades. My concern, the Trump administration has not made clear what is their plan when they say that they are going to run the country. And another very big concern is that they haven't said anything about elections. When are the presidential elections that will help shape Venezuela's future and transition Venezuela to a democracy going to take place? And the oil sector, if that is a prerequisite for such elections, the oil sector is going to take years, if not a decade or more, to come back to a healthy and productive oil sector. So I have some.
Yeah, these are concerns. They haven't given more information, and they're painting this narrative that, oh, this is so dangerous, so scary. We've got concerns. What is Trump going to do? And side note, this thing is awesome. America's got some cool toys. Essentially, they have this story on here that's based in nothing other than speculation that Trump might be doing something really bad here. We know what he's doing. He's going to get the oil from Venezuela and enrich America. We know what he's doing. And he got rid of Maduro in the process. The people of Venezuela are happy. It's going to be very good for America financially. It's a win-win for both those nations. It's not like he was just some kind of crappy politician that was not very good at his job. He was a narco terror lord. It's not like he was a decent guy and Trump came and captured him. He was a really bad dude who had what was coming to him.
Some big concerns about what comes next in Venezuela and how long it's going to take and what this means for the U.S. presence and U.S. ability to run the country for the long term.
Okay, so then Roxana, let's play out two scenarios. Beginning with what your worst case scenario is. Now, there is a lot of skepticism out there about the U.S. president's presence in Venezuela. One thing he has made clear is that the oil is a big factor in this, that they want to reestablish the infrastructure, have American oil companies get into Venezuela, extract that wealth. He said that's how we're going to be involved. They are caretaking of the government. They might be relying on the current vice president who's being sworn in as the president. As you said, no reference to Gonzalez, who was elected last year or 2 years ago now, I should say. So what in your mind would be the worst case scenario with the American presence there?
There it is. Go right to the worst case scenario. Oh my God, Trump is being so evil here. He already said they're working out a plan. They're not just jumping to the first thing would put Edmundo back in there and then off you guys go. They're figuring it out the way that it'll stay stable. It'll have a democracy, getting rid of this socialist dictatorship. So they're not rushing into it.
The worst case scenario would be a indefinite or protracted U.S. military occupation of Venezuela, where there is no clear path to a democratic transition, where you have a Maduro insider, Maduro crony that has taken over and has agreed to the U.S. government's demands, but without a clear plan for how the country will transition to democracy.
Yeah, but that's not what's going to happen here. They're going to figure out a plan and roll it out. I don't think they're going to be putting 100,000 troops on the ground and running the country as if it's their own like that. They want this to transition to a democracy and quickly. So there's no shortage of leftists melting down. We've got Heather McPherson here originally posting, Trump's administration has decided the rules no longer apply U.S. or international law. International law isn't a thing. Justice does not come from force. It comes from accountability under international law. Maduro's repression does not justify these actions, and Canada must not tolerate any violations of international law. You know what's funny about this is they're bringing him to the courthouse. They're trying him in a court of law. They could have just taken him out to sea and just popped him and he would have been gone. They could have done that, but that's not what they're doing. They're letting a court try him. So what is she complaining about here? The fact that they went in with a Black Hawk helicopter and some troops to go capture him? I mean, he's not going to come out willingly. He's a narco-terror lord. This is such a dumb take. And then she replies on her own post here saying, we are witnessing the end of international law. There's no police force to police international law. Thus, it's a set of agreements, but really it can be broken and there's no consequence. It doesn't really exist. We do have conservative Garnet Jenness replying to this ridiculous post here saying, he was not the head of state. Maduro's illegitimacy was the overwhelming consensus of the democratic world. Not a single member of the G7 or EU recognized this election. Who considers Maduro president? China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Eritrea, and the NDP. Ouch. Mic drop. Get Heather McPherson an ambulance because that burn is bad. Yep, the Canadian NDP. No logic or reason. Going back to the CBC, we've got Nicolas Maduro, the man of the people, with an iron grip. What a statement. And with that, they bring on this guy. This is an interesting choice for their panel here.
Guest who you see on your screen, this is Ben Rosewell. He's a former Canadian ambassador to Venezuela and a consultant with Catalyze 4.
A consultant with Catalyze 4. Who uses the word catalyze? You already know where this is going. The guy who launched Catalyze 4 is Andrew Bevin. As it says here, he nabbed Anne McGrath from the NDP. It already tells you where this organization stands. Now, if we go down memory lane, Liberal campaign co-director leaving politics after election win. This is talking about Andrew Bevin. There he is right there. Andrew Bevin arrives to Parliament Hill in Ottawa on Wednesday, November 6, 2024. A longtime Liberal staffer, Bevin previously served as the chief of staff in the Paul Martin administration, also worked as principal secretary to Stéphane Dion during his time as the leader of the official opposition. And what do we have here? Trudeau appoints new Liberal campaign director. Who is Andrew Bevin? He's a Liberal in the Justin Trudeau government is who he is. And this guy works at his firm. Now that we're caught up, we know exactly where these guys stand.
Let me talk to you first about your reaction to waking up to the news that essentially Venezuela no longer has a president, and that president is on his way to the United States.
Yeah. I have to say, after years and years of seeing the damage that Nicolás Maduro did to his country and to the people of his country, the terrible repression, the crimes against humanity that he committed, there is certainly a tremendous sense of relief that he's gone.
Oh, okay. So we're off to a good start here. Crimes against humanity. He's totally a bad guy. Trump totally justified in doing this, right?
Hope for a better Venezuela that begins, but a terrible, terrible way to bring about this change.
Oh, a terrible way to bring about this change. Venezuelans should just keep starving instead of Trump sending in the troops to capture this guy. These leftists are all insane.
The President of the United States also made it very clear that they're taking over. They're going to run the country. Now, you say this may come as a relief for many in Venezuela. Is this the way they want to see that relief?
It's so funny. She even said it. This comes as a relief to the people of Venezuela. They're fine with this. They're like, yeah, come on in, please. We want a democracy like you guys have in America. And here's the CBC fear-mongering this.
So it's the end of one dictator, but it is not the beginning of democracy.
What a statement. A little slight jab there saying that Trump is running this like a half dictator.
Until the elected leader of Venezuela, who is Edmundo Gonzalez, who now lives in Madrid, is able to take the reins of power in signaling that the United States does not agree with the legitimately elected government. It suggests to me democracy is not even on their radar, let alone not an objective of this. In the same outrageous press conference that President Trump just gave, he also talked about how they're going to seize oil. I mean, this is really the law of the jungle.
We get exactly where this guy stands. He's a liberal. And Trump didn't say he disagrees. He said that they're going to work out a plan to make sure this never happens again, that a dictatorship won't be possible in Venezuela, that it'll be a democracy. There's a difference.
Talk to me about that word outrageous. Why do you say that?
We talk about the norms of the international system and how important they are to any country, including the large countries, but also especially to countries like Canada. We rely on there being some limits on how military force is used in international affairs. We have no...
These weak liberals, they don't understand the real world. Sometimes you got to roll the troops in there and take care of business. You can't be like, hey, Maduro, we sent you an email. Could you please come out of your big palace and stop terrorizing your own citizens? Like, these people are completely out to lunch. The people of Venezuela are not upset about Trump rolling in and getting rid of Maduro. Here they are toppling a Maduro statue. They're breaking the bottom there with a hammer. You can see down here. Look how excited they are. They're just pushing over the statue, but what it means freedom to these people. They're not like, oh, Trump violated international law. I can't believe it. These people don't have enough food to eat. There's narco-terror lords running through their streets, threatening people. Any of the opposition that pushes back against these guys, like as he mentioned, he lives in Madrid in Spain. They'll get whacked in Venezuela. Next up, listen to these wild statements on here. I can't believe they're putting this on national television.
You brought up a number of issues here. One is the word invasion, which I'm sure many people will bristle at, but this is possibly, this is what we might be looking at, especially when the president...
Oh, I'm bristling over here. I'm bristling. The invasion. There's no invasion. They went in there with a SEAL team and they nabbed the guy, bringing him to a court and trying him. There's no invasion. There's not 100,000 Americans storming through the city and wiping people out. This is all propaganda.
And saying we're running the show now. Yeah. They've not been elected to do so. So you talk about the democratically elected president.
Trump hasn't been elected to do so. Neither has Maduro. Maduro didn't step down. They're defending Maduro. You can't make this crap up.
Who's not in the country. The vice president of the country who has seemingly been sworn in to lead for the time being. And then you have Machado, who is widely regarded, at least in the West, as a possible alternative. But in all of this, where are ordinary Venezuelans? How did this country go from being arguably the wealthiest in Latin America with that tremendous oil reserves, so progressive, so forward-moving, to where it is right now?
That's a very long story, and it has a lot to do with overdependence on oil, on any one product that has such a wildly fluctuating price in international markets is always a bad idea. Most countries that depend entirely or heavily on oil tend to be dictatorships. It's a bad product to base your economy on if you want to be a democracy.
That's right, folks. So if you have a lot of oil in your country, it'll automatically be a dictatorship, according to this buffoon. So let's clarify this guy's wild statement here. So basically, if a country has a lot of oil, then it can make a lot of money and it's not reliant on taxpayers' money. Thus, then they wouldn't need to have elections if the government can just stay in power with oil money. That's what he's trying to say here. But in reality, that's not every nation that has a lot of oil. Here we've got crude oil production, America, not a dictatorship dictatorship. Saudi Arabia is an absolute monarchy. Dictatorships. Russia's electoral authoritarian state. Canada, not a dictatorship. China is a one-party authoritarian state, so dictatorship. Iraq has a weak democracy right now. Brazil has democracy. United Arab Emirates is an absolute monarchy, so essentially dictatorship. Kuwait has monarchy with limited parliament, so essentially dictatorship. Kazakhstan, authoritarian-leaning regime, so you can say dictatorship. Norway is a democracy. Mexico, democracy. Libya is a fragmented state. Qatar is an absolute monarchy. Further down here, we've got United Kingdom, democracy. Australia, democracy. Argentina, Colombia, India, Ecuador, and Malaysia all have weakened democracies. Some of them have some corruption compromise, but they're democracies nonetheless. Either way, his blanket statement here is ridiculous. Clearly, it's not all dictatorships for countries with oil.
But in the more recent past, what I would say is that after the disastrous decisions that the Maduro government took in the management of their difficult economic situation, it's the economic policies of the Maduro government that have devastated the lives of Venezuelans and created the largest mass movement of humans in our hemisphere in its history. And so they are quite widely in support of a democratic transition. There are very, very few Venezuelans that have any time of day for Maduro. He's really hated.
Yeah, exactly. What's the problem here, guys? Does Mark Carney need something else to run on here? Donald Trump's so scary, he's going to come steal all our water and our land. He's going to steal it all. Mark Carney's next election campaign, and he'll be the banker to come save Canada again. This is what they're going to try to run, but it's not going to work because people already know Mark Carney can't get a deal. He's a failure.
In his country and within the international diaspora of Venezuelans, they do very strongly support Edmundo Gonzalez. They voted in record numbers for him. And please note that Maria Corina Machado is an ally of Gonzalez. She told Venezuelans, if you like me, vote for Gonzalez. And her statement this morning is that it's Gonzalez that should be the president, not her. On this note, it's even more alarming that President Trump, having authorized this military intervention to remove a government, is not showing support for the democratically elected president of the country. And
they're just trying to spin this any which way they can. Trump has liberated Venezuelans, but he's not shown support for the government yet. Yeah, they're working out a plan because they don't want to just jump at it right away. They didn't know exactly how this was going to go. They thought they'd have to do 2 runs at it to get Maduro. They got him on the first go. Here on CBC, more fear-mongering. Donald Trump's so bad. Let's just pull back and think about this logically for a second. If they went to Edmundo, who won the election 2 years ago, if the American administration said, hey, we're going to go capture Maduro, do you want to be leader of Venezuela? Well, then that might get out and tip it off to Maduro. Thus, they did this without telling anyone, and there was no leaks on this. Why would they tell anyone about what they're doing here and jeopardize the mission? That's why this is still up in the air. I'm sure they haven't communicated with him at all because this all had to be done in secret to get Maduro. CBC is teeing up Mark Carney's next election run here. They're trying to paint this narrative here that Donald Trump is going to just run around the world and take over any country that he wants, and he's going to come for Canada and steal our potash and our oil and our water. Meanwhile, he just did a deal with Belarus to get potash, doing his thing here with Venezuela for oil. Clearly, he doesn't want to do a deal with Mark Carney. If he was going to come annex us, he would have already done it. He wouldn't go through all this other trouble. This is a narrative that CBC is helping push for Mark Carney for the next election. The Liberals can't run on their record because it's absolutely abysmal, so they have to run on fear again, trying to scare the left into voting for Mark Carney. Unfortunately for him, Canadians are realizing he's a failure. He hasn't been able to get a deal with Donald Trump. His elbows up campaign is a sham. He will desperately try to use the fear of Donald Trump taking over Canada to try to get a majority government. It's not going to work. This fear campaign is too close to the last one, and Canadians have already started to wake up.
That, I think, should lead us to have great suspicion for the true intentions of the United States.
Okay.
Oh, so dangerous, so scary. The United States saving Venezuelans who are all cheering in the streets.